Patriots actually made splashes in free agency, which I didn't really think was going to happen. Usually they're super conservative, but they went out and made a whole bunch of moves. They spent a whole bunch of money, more than any team by far. They didn't get the biggest stars, but they got a lot of quality players. They usually build through the draft. Like I said, they don't spend money. And I think really when Brady left and he won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, it kind of showed that even though Tom Brady is still playing at a high level, obviously he has more support in Tampa. He's obviously super talented, and to let Brady go, and the Patriots last year, they were 7-9. They lost a lot of close games, but just the lack of dynamic playmakers on both sides of the ball was really a sign to everybody that if they would have went out and would have got more talent, maybe would have drafted better, Brady could have continued to stay there and play his career there and continue to win. So I think when Brady won the Super Bowl, it was kind of an indictment on Bill Belichick as a GM, because obviously as a coach, we know he's a great coach, but he also runs GM responsibilities, and they really haven't been good drafting personnel, especially tight ends and receivers. So I think really this free agency, they didn't get superstars, and they didn't overpay for a lot of people. They got a lot of good value, but it was kind of Bill Belichick kind of owning up to that and kind of realizing, they're that close. They were 7-9 last year, 4 one-possession losses. If they can just get over the hump, and if they can just get a lot of dynamic players, which they did, they could be right back in contention. And then also, I think last year was kind of a strategic year by Bill Belichick. He knew they weren't going to win. There's actually a report last year that when all the opt-outs happened, because they led the league, that Bill Belichick kind of pushed that to happen. He knew they weren't going to be good, and then he knew the salary cap was going to go down. So he really planned for this, and then he had all those, he influenced, supported those players opting out. He got that cap space, and they had upwards of like $65 million. So good forward thinking by him. And let's get into the moves that they ended up making. So the first move they made, and well, actually, I don't know if it's the first move, but it's definitely the most important. I can't remember if Cam got signed first or if they traded for Trent Brown first, but they re-signed Cam, and he played 14 games, I believe, and he showed flashes. I watched a few Cam games. The game that really stood out to me was the Jets game. Even though they don't really have a lot of dynamic playmakers, I think his arm kind of gets a bad rap. I think the lack of dynamic playmakers on the offensive side of the ball kind of forces him to not be able to hit deep. And he was never the best deep ball thrower. He never had the best arm, and he is coming off a shoulder injury. But I think that when it comes to the short game, he still has a lot of zip on the ball. And also in the Seattle game, he played really good as a passer as well. So I think even though Cam, when overall you look at it and you look at the stats, 8 touchdowns, 10 picks, only like 2,600 yards, it does not look good. But I think he didn't play as bad as the stats would indicate. I mean, Tom Brady struggled, guys, and he just won the Super Bowl, and he was a top 5 quarterback, at least in production last year, not in talent, because he's not top 5 in talent anymore. But when you have those weapons, you're going to play at a high level. So he was top 5 in production last year. So when someone who struggled the year before goes out and wins a Super Bowl and plays at an MVP level, that is really an indictment on the offense. But he wasn't special, but he showed flashes. He actually had 600 rushing yards, well, nearly, and 12 rushing touchdowns on the ground. So a lot of people that questions Cam durability, I mean, he still went out there and got it done. And what he's always been good at is running the ball, getting those tough yards, and especially being in the red zone. And he was better than ever. And, his best year in touchdown-wise. So good for him. He also had a career high in completion percentage, 65.7. One of the knocks on Cam is he's not very accurate. Usually his completion percentage is low, but that is a good thing. I think that's skewed a little bit, honestly, because they threw a lot of short passes, and this year, as they try to push the ball down the field more, that might go down a little. It might go up, who knows, but it's skewed a little bit, but he played good, honestly. He didn't play great. I'm not going to go out there and say, Cam's the definite franchise quarterback, but I think bringing him back was really important because there really wasn't a lot of options. I mean, you're not going to trade for Sam Darnold. They're not going to let you. Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, I don't think you could get the package. And on the market, I mean, Andy Dalton, like Mariota, I mean, Mac Jones, like you can try to trade up. And, I mean, they could still trade up. Don't get me wrong. They could get a Mac Jones, develop him, maybe get a Justin Fields. I mean, they have, they're both dynamic. But this was your best option, believe it or not. And I think it was a really good move by the Patriots. And when you go into his contract, he has the best starting, at least for now, because he may not start the season. Who knows? But as of right now, he has the best starting quarterback contract in the league. So basically, he will earn about $5.1 million guaranteed if he is healthy and he's a backup. And it bumps up to 6.6 if he starts all 16 games. Well, I think it might not be 16, but if he starts most of the season, and 8.6 if he makes the playoffs, and then it's up to a maximum of about 14, but that's really team performance type, like MVP, Super Bowl MVP. So even though it's up to $14 million, he's probably not going to earn that, most likely. He's probably going to earn in the range of $8 to $10 million next year. So if you have a starting quarterback who showed flash, who is a former MVP for a contract under $10 million, even though he didn't play the best last year, that's extreme value. So I give this grade an A-. I mean, it was the best fit, and he was new to the system last year. COVID, the offseason and all that stuff was affected by COVID. So I think another year in the system, maybe a better offseason. We don't know. It might be restricted still due to COVID. But I think another year in Josh McDaniels' system, he's going to be a lot better. And they did add weapons, which I'll go into further. So I think this was a great move, great contract, and they could still go out and get competition, and they could even draft someone to develop. So I think this was a perfect move. A lot of people didn't think that he was going to come back. Many thought he was going to go to Carolina and reunite with his old coach, Ron Rivera. But I always thought all along that he would re-sign. So good for him and good for the Patriots. The next move that the Patriots made is they traded for Trent Brown. And if you guys don't know, he used to play for the Patriots and then also for the 49ers. He was a really good right tackle for the Patriots and for the 49ers too. And he ended up signing like a max contract for the Raiders. Unfortunately for the Raiders, it didn't work out. Signed him to like a 3 or 4 max contract deal, $20 million, something like that. But he didn't really play well. He gained weight, and he missed a lot of starts. So it didn't work out. I thought they were going to cut him because he was a cap casualty, but they ended up finding a trade for him. The reports is New England will send a 2022 5th-round pick for the Raiders, 2022 7th-round pick. So swap picks, and I mean, wow, you traded down to the 7th round for a starting caliber right tackle. Wow, shocking. But and then he also agreed to a contract restructure that it brings down his cap from it was crazy. It was like 18 mil to a 1 year, $11 million deal. He had 2 years, $30 million left on his previous contract. So they get him for a price reduction, 1 year. It's going to shore up that right tackle spot. Marcus Cannon opted out last year. I think this is a really good move. I give it a B+, and the reason why it's not higher is just for the fact that you're betting on him to be healthy and start for you 16 games, which he hasn't proved he has in a couple years. But I think in terms of talent, this has extreme upside for the Patriots. I mean, he could be a fixture on that offensive line. He's like 6'9", like 400 pounds. He's a monster. So getting this player on your offensive line is going to help out. It's going to make your team even better than last year. Your offensive line is going to help in the run game. It's going to help protect Cam. So great move. B+, could be even higher if he starts, but there is some injury concern and some play concern. But if he can get back to his old level, this could even look even better than what it does right now. So let's get into the next move. So the next moves I want to get into is the 2 receivers they signed. So the first one was Nelson Aguilera. So the deal is 2 years, $26 million, about $13 a year. And Nelson Aguilera was really a guy that I was really hard on, especially to my friends, with the Eagles, because he had a good year with the Super Bowl, but there was a point in the league where he was just dropping so many passes. And he finished out his career really bad in Philadelphia. He signed a 1-year prove-it deal with the Raiders, and he was fantastic. He only had 48 catches, but he had nearly 900 yards, 18.7 per catch. That's unheard of. That's almost 20. and then also 8 touchdowns to go along with it. So I give this move an A. Man, this guy's underrated. He was so good in the Raiders scheme last year. He was their really only viable deep threat. I really like Henry Ruggs, but he missed some time with injury, and he was kind of last year. But Nelson Aguilera, this is a great signing. A lot of people, wanted them to go out, get a Kenny Galladay and or a higher end receiver. But I really like this move. It's only 2 years. I thought he would have maybe got like 3 or 4, but I guess with COVID, teams are more reluctant. But only $26 million to get a guy like this. He's going to change this offense. I will say that, and I think he and Cam are going to be really good. That's going to really give them a deep threat that they haven't had in a long time, guys. They had Gronk and Edelman and Amendola, these slot guys, but he's gonna stretch the defense, and he's gonna be able to get over the top. So I think this is a great signing. The next receiver they signed was Kendrick Bourne, 3 years, $22.5 million, about $7 a year. This one I was a little shocked at. He's a really good player. He's super underrated. I'm a Seahawks fan. I see him twice a year. But he had 49 catches, 667 yards, about 13.6 average, which is pretty good, and a couple touchdowns along with that. I really think Kendrick Bourne is an underrated receiver because he played really good this last year. I mean, that's like number 2. That's low end number 2, starting number 3. But he had to play with Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard, and I don't even. Maybe there was a third, and also with Jimmy G a little bit. But if you can put up that type of production with those lackluster quarterbacks, I think he's really underrated. The price threw me off a little bit. I think this is a little too much. The guarantees are lower, so if he doesn't live up to the contract, they can get out of it easier. But I think it wasn't a bad overall deal. It shocked a lot of people, but to me, he's a good player, definitely. I give this move a B-. I think he's going to help out. And worst case scenario, he doesn't get a lot of production and he's cut next year. But yeah, I like both these signings, and it's going to help the offense. It's not a splash name, but both these guys are definitely going to help the offense. So the next moves that the Patriots made on offense is they signed not 1 but 2 tight ends. So the first one they signed from the Tennessee Titans, Jonnu Smith, 4 years, $50 million, about 12 a year. And I like this signing. I don't love this signing. He is a really good player. He's super dynamic. He's the most dynamic tight end on the market, and I think he has the highest ceiling out of both the tight ends they signed. So he has a lot of potential. He's flashy. He's fast. I mean, he can pretty much do it all. He's a great deep threat. I'm not going to say he's unproven, but he's been consistently good. Just with signs of greatness, flashes of greatness. So he had 41 catches, 448 yards, 10.9 average for 8 touchdowns. 8 touchdowns is really clutch. Something the Patriots just weren't able to do last year was get passing touchdowns. They were able to run. But I really like this deal. He's young too. I think 25, 26. So I give this deal a B. They did overpay for him, but it's a good player, and he's definitely dynamic. I was a little shocked when they signed 2 tight ends. So the next one, Hunter Henry from the Chargers. I'm sure that the Chargers would have re-signed him for Herbert, but I guess I was wrong. Only 3 years, 37.8, about 12.6 a year, and I really like this signing. This is a B+ to me. The only concern is with me is I don't think he's ever started a season 16 games, maybe 1. But, he came off ACL a few years ago. He's been in and out the lineup. But when he's in the lineup, he is a phenomenal player. 60 catches, 613 yards, 10.2 average, and 4 touchdowns. I don't think his ceiling is as high as Jonnu, but I definitely think his floor is. So I think Jonnu is going to help stretch the field, and then Hunter Henry is going to be like a security blanket. But he can do it all, but he's going to be like a security blanket for Cam, help him out in the short game. But I really like this. Interesting that they got 2, top of the market tight ends. But I guess, like Lamar in Baltimore, they use like 2-3 tight end formations. So I like this deal. This kind of also showed that Bill Belichick owned up to his mistakes in the draft last year. He drafted two tight ends in the 3rd round, David Asiasi and Dalton Keene, I think, and they did not work out. They did not play good. So it kind of sucks that they had to give up on both their 3rd round picks for last year. But, they signed good players. They owned up to it. B plus for Henry, B minus for Jonnu. Like I said, Jonnu has a higher floor, so he has a lot more potential. Not higher floor, higher ceiling. And Hunter Henry, he's solid, he's established. So B plus for that, and B for Jonnu. Good moves. So one of the Patriots' first moves is signing Matt Judon. So the deal is 4 years, $56 million, about $14 a year. When I first saw this deal, I didn't like it as much as I do now, just due to the fact that he played on the franchise tag last year. He's not a crazy sack guy, but he is consistent. I looked at the stats. So he had 6 last year, 9.5 the year before, 7 before that, and 8. So the last 4 years, he's had 30.5 sacks. He's not going to lead the league. He hasn't been double digits yet, but he is consistent. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's also a really good run stopper. He's classified as a linebacker, but he's more of an outside rusher. And when I look at it and I see these guys getting $18-20 million to rush a passer, and you get a consistent guy like Matt Judon for only $14 million a year, probably be more in a normal offseason. This is a great signing. A minus, definitely. I think he's going to fit the system well. They really lacked a lot of good, talented edge rushers, and he's good in the run game. So I really like this move. A minus. Another linebacker they re-signed actually, and I'm surprised. The Dolphins, they cut Kyle Van Noy into a contract, and he was actually pretty good. He had 6 sacks last year. He's good in the run game. He could actually even play a little bit of coverage. I give this move A plus. Only 2 years, up to $13 million. I think it's like base 12. So this is a great move. He signed like a $50 million 4-year deal last year with the Dolphins. So bringing him back, you have 2 linebackers. That's going to come back with Dante Hightower that I didn't even talk about. But having 3 starting level good NFL linebackers, this defense, they got to figure out what they're doing at corner. Whether they're retaining Gilmore or not, but this defense is going to be much improved, and I really like this move more than I thought that I did before. So A minus for Judon, and A plus for Van Noy. I mean, he's not a star, but he is a stud. 2 years, up to $13 million. That's basement price. So good for him, and he knows the system too. So he's going to come back, and he's just a plug and play. So good for him. And then let's see. So I'm gonna group these last 3 together because they're not really stars, but I'll just go over them generally. I don't have a grade for Devon Godchow or Henry Anderson. They're solid players. They're young. Well, Godchow's young. Henderson's a little older. Anderson, and he was cut last year. He was a cap casualty, but I mean he's solid in the beginning stages of his career. So getting him back, just having him in the rotation, good value signing. And then Devon Godchow, I think it was like a 2-year 13, 2-year 16. Not bad. He's a young player. He has some upside. He played with Brian Flores, so. He signed a couple players from Brian Flores, so I think he likes what he brings to the table, and he's just going to be a lot of good depth. And Jalen Mills, I think this is, I'm not going to say it's a horrible move, but this is probably the move that I liked least of the Patriots. They gave him a 4-year, $24 million deal, only 9 guaranteed, so they can get out of it after the first year, pretty much. But he is versatile. He can play safety. He can play corner, good in, I'm not going to say good, but, he can do coverage. He could do zone. But, he's a decent player at best. He got burnt a lot in Philly. He is versatile though, so it's an okay deal. I give it a C plus. 4 years, 24. They can get out of it. But yeah, no, the Patriots, before I broke all this down, I really thought, wow, they're spending so much money, and I don't like it because, usually the big spenders in free agency never work out. But I like the value of these signings, and there's reports that they can get a Leonard Fournette or a Chris Carson. If they can get one of those guys for a cheap deal, this team will be scary next year. I promise you that. They got a lot of good value, a lot of good players, good prices. So overall, hands down, Patriots are the biggest winners of free agency. Money well spent. Usually, when you look at the usual biggest spenders like the Bengals or the Jaguars or the Jets, they shell out cash for bad players. The Giants with Nate Solder a few years ago, but these are great contracts. The tight ends, they got top of the line deals. So, but you got a lot of good value, got a lot of good young pieces. and they might not be done. So I might have to come back and update this video. But if they can continue to add talent through the draft, I think this is a playoff team next year. With the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bills, I'm not going to say Super Bowl. Cam Newton is Cam Newton, but if they can get all these players to be healthy, they're going to be much improved. They're going to be a playoff team next year. There's no doubt about that. And then Buffalo, they could be a regression candidate. They could improve. We'll see. They played really good last year, so they might have a chance at the division, certainly over the Jets. And I would argue over the Dolphins right now. But we'll have to see. Maybe not. Maybe these moves will be bad. We'll see down the road. But yeah, good job by the Patriots.